Hey there, welcome back to another video just like last time. My name is Nick. Got my notes right here like always. If you're not returning to this video and you're clicking on it for the first time, also welcome. Thank you for clicking on this video. I hope you enjoy it and you subscribe. Anyway, today I have my notes right here like I said, like always, and I am going to rank the top 5 pro sports leagues in North America by how likely I think they are to expand in the future. So we're going to look at their most recent expansion teams, where they got up to, and do I think they're likely to expand? So let's get into it. Starting out with number 5, I have the NFL. Their last expansion was in 2002 when they returned to Houston with the Houston Texans, and that brought them up to 32 teams. So the NFL has not expanded in 24 years. Honestly, this is the only sport that I can recall in modern history that has not been talking about expansion whatsoever. I think they're pretty happy with their setup, how it is. They have 32 teams in 8 divisions of 4 teams each. Everything's even across the board for the NFL. I know a lot of fans would like to see a team across the pond in London. I don't know how likely that is. The NFL has started doing their international games. It seems like almost every week now there is another international game somewhere around the world. And that's awesome that they're growing the sport around the world. But you have if they're selling out one game in Madrid, actually I don't even know if that game sold out this year, but just using it as an example, if you sell out one game in Madrid, that's awesome. But if you were to put a team in Madrid, you would want to make sure that the chance of that team selling out all 8 or 9 of their home games, however their schedule would end up falling, is very highly possible. So I'm not sure how likely an international expansion team to the NFL is. London would probably be the most likely, but I think they're also very happy with just having their games spread around the world. I do think if the NFL were to expand, there are some cities in North America that would probably get a good look at a chance to expand. I know St. Louis wants a team back. They have rallied behind the Battlehawks in the UFL. The Rams were there for a good chunk of time, and now they're back in LA. So I'm sure St. Louis would jump at the chance to get an NFL team back. Also, I think an interesting city to keep an eye on would probably be Salt Lake City. They have the Jazz, Real Salt Lake in the MLS, and they just got the Arizona Coyotes moved there 2 seasons ago, and now they're the Utah Mammoth. So I think Salt Lake City might be low key becoming a pretty big sports city. So if there is expansion on the front for the NFL, maybe Salt Lake City could end up being one of those key teams or key cities pushing for a new team. Despite all that, like I said, I have not heard anything that makes me think the NFL wants to expand. So I'm giving this a 1 out of 10 possibility of happening. I don't think it's very likely that we get more NFL teams. Coming in at number 4, a league that I enjoy watching probably the most out of any professional league, the NHL. Their last expansion was in 2021 with the Seattle Kraken joining the league. That brought them up to 32 teams, just like the NFL. As much as I would love to see expansion in the NHL past 32 teams, I'm not sure how likely it is as of right now. The 2 cities that have been thrown out there quite a few times, Atlanta, which would this would be Atlanta's third chance at an NHL franchise. Who knows how that would go? Also, Houston has been thrown around quite a few times. So we can see those are 2 pretty big markets that do not have NHL teams, but have almost every other sport. If I'm not mistaken, they actually have all 4 other sports other than the hockey team on this list. So 2 pretty big markets that the NHL could look to cash in on. That would also kind of even things out with their East and West because that would add a team to each conference should they expand to those 2 cities. Not saying it's going to happen, but I think it would be very interesting to have an eighth team in Canada, because I think it's kind of silly that when we have hockey night in Canada, there is normally an American team playing because there's only 7 teams. There's not an even number of teams in Canada. So give us an eighth Canadian team. Quebec City, I know you have been vying for another team. Bring back the Nordiques. I am an American saying bring back the Nordiques. There you go, Canadians. I'm on your side. Still, though, the NHL, much like the NFL, has a perfectly even number of teams across their divisions. They have 4 divisions with 8 teams, so it is the reverse of what the NFL has. But I don't know how likely NHL expansion is right now. I'm giving this a 3 out of 10 at the moment. Would I be surprised if they expand further? No, I would not. But at this moment, 3 out of 10. Coming in at 3, I have the MLB. Their last expansion was in 1998. They brought in the Arizona Diamondbacks and the Tampa Bay Rays, which brought them up to 30 teams. There have been a lot of talks with the MLB looking to expand, but they wanted to make sure that the Devil Rays, or they're not the Devil Rays anymore, they're the Rays. The Rays and the A's had their stadium situations under control. And then the A's left the Coliseum to go play in a AAA ballpark in Sacramento, and I believe this is going to be their second season of what's supposed to be 3 seasons playing there. And last season, the Rays ended up playing in a spring training ballpark because the roof got ripped off of Tropicana Field during the hurricane. So those 2 stadium situations have not been resolved, so I don't know how likely MLB expansion would be. A couple cities that I have been seeing thrown around are Portland, Oregon, which I think is an interesting one. Get that rivalry going with Seattle. Nashville, which personally I hope Nashville would get a team. I think that'd be pretty fun. I think those are the only 2 really that I've been hearing. There's probably more. Oh, Salt Lake City. Salt Lake City is also vying for a baseball team. I believe they have a bunch of state funded money that is sitting there just waiting for MLB approval for them to build a stadium, if I'm not mistaken. So, kind of what I said with the NFL. Salt Lake City could be a very interesting surprise candidate for getting teams and then becoming just this crazy sports city. Hopefully, they would end up having some success on the field or the ice or the court. Jazz fans, I'm sorry for that one. I didn't think before I said it. But nonetheless, I would imagine that expansion for the MLB would not even be in the discussion until about 2027, when the 2 teams who are having stadium issues might be resolved. So I am giving this an expansion to the MLB a 4 out of 10 possibility of maybe happening. Number 2, the reason that there's 5 leagues on this list, the MLS, Major League Soccer. Their last expansion was San Diego FC. They started in 2025, so just last season, and that brought them up to 30 teams. I do not believe that the MLS currently has any plans to expand past 30 teams. I just threw this in here because they did just expand last season, and I think it's something crazy like they brought in 14 teams or something in the last 10 years. I forgot to write the exact number down, but they have been expanding like crazy. It seems like almost every season, if not every season, every other season throughout the past decade, we've seen at least one new team joining the MLS. So I don't believe they want to expand to 32 teams to make it even with the NFL and NHL. But I would love to see Louisville City go to the MLS. I don't know that that's going to happen with the USL planning to have their own top tier level league in the soccer pyramid in the US. But I think Louisville would be a great fit in the MLS. I think it's a great sport to give Kentucky its first top level professional sports team. But the two cities that I have seen as possibilities floating around there are Phoenix, Arizona, and Las Vegas, Nevada. And I know at one point the Indy 11, who also play in the USL, were having talks with the MLS about expanding or joining MLS as an expansion team in Indiana. So three teams right there that are kind of kicking the tires at least on possible expansion. But it seems like the MLS is still kind of in that expansion mode, maybe not necessarily actively looking to expand, but they've already added so many teams that adding a couple more really probably wouldn't be that crazy of an idea for them. So I'm going to give them a 6 out of 10, even though I haven't heard any plans for further expansion from what they've already done. So that means my number one most likely league, in my opinion, to expand, the NBA. Their last expansion was in 2004 when the Charlotte Bobcats, who are now the Charlotte Hornets, expanded or joined the league in expansion, bringing them up to 30 teams. I think it's one of the worst kept secrets in sports right now that the NBA wants to be in Las Vegas and Seattle, which just so happened to be the last two cities that the NHL expanded to. Meaning there are already brand new, well, Climate Pledge Arena is not brand new, but they did a whole bunch of renovations to it. There are new arenas in these two cities that if they decided next season we want to be in Seattle and Las Vegas, all they'd have to do is get a floor made and they'd be ready to go. Minus like coming up with team identities and everything like that. But they could literally next season be ready for expansion. I do think those are the two cities. I remember when there were two teams, at least two teams that I can remember, that were talking about relocating to Seattle. And that was the Milwaukee Bucks and the Sacramento Kings back in like the 2010s after the Sonics had already left. Those two teams were talking about relocation to Seattle and never got approved. But I could see both of these cities getting it. You have T-Mobile Arena in Vegas that could probably take them in as long as they were willing to play there. They'd probably want their own arena, but they could play at T-Mobile for the time being. And Climate Pledge, I think when they were renovating Climate Pledge, they had worked it so that there would be a possible NBA expansion. Also, Seattle and Vegas, both teams or both cities that have teams in the WNBA. I think they're outside of Connecticut, who I believe is relocating. They're the only two cities in the WNBA that do not have a NBA team counterpart, is what I was trying to say. But I'm giving this a 9.5 out of 10 of happening. And actually, I think the NBA is the most likely to expand beyond 32 should they want to. It seems like they have the smallest roster size out of any of these sports that I just talked about. So expanding past 32 doesn't seem like it would be a problem, especially with the quality of players coming out of college. I mean, you're definitely going to have teams that would probably fall off, not be as competitive, but I'd imagine that the NBA would probably be the most likely to expand up to 40 teams, in my opinion. But let me know what you guys think. Where do you hope get expansion teams in any of these leagues or in general? Let me know. If you made it this far, you might as well hit that subscribe button. Just like always, if you hit that subscribe button, you're going to start helping me fund my hat addiction, which means you'll get to see your favorite team's hat on my head when I do a video on them. But until next time, bye bye.